What's up, everyone? Paul here from the Hoops crew to go through the round 16 recipients, and I say recipients, of NUFF of the week. And this week, it goes to Essendon fans, you clowns. Now, this week, I'm recording this off the back of the Geelong and Essendon game where, so in the eyes of some, there were some pretty contentious decisions that were made or not made over the course of the Geelong and Essendon game on Saturday night. And I can't show the footage of those simply because we'll get copyright struck. But there's a few that in particular that really irked Essendon fans. I think there's probably 4. Some that I agree with, some that I don't. So I'll discuss each of those and then kind of get to the whinging, whining Essendon fans who are the recipients of NUFF of the week this week. So first, let's start with the, and I'm just going kind of sequentially in my head. I don't think this is even necessarily the order that these things transpired. But we'll begin with the biggest one, the biggest talking point of the weekend, and that was the rush behind. Now, in this particular instance, an Essendon player had, and I'm completely blanking on who he was because he was fairly young, fairly new. I haven't been following Essendon much this year because honestly, they're not that good of a team despite what their ladder position says, and they're getting exposed now by teams who are decent. And I think we're going to continue to see that as the season goes on. I am also buying myself some time here as I skim and look for that young player's name. Jai Menzie. He got exposed by 2 very smart players in Ollie Dempsey and Brad Close on the weekend because he recognized that he was in a tight spot and that rushing the behind might have been the right call to make. But he turned his back on them. And by turning his back on them, he showed to both players exactly what it is he planned on doing and gave both Ollie Dempsey and Brad Close time to stand back, throw the hands in the air, and plead essentially with the umpire well before Jai Menzie had even stepped over the line that this was a deliberately rushed behind. Now, the rules have been kind of bandied around by a few different people, and there's been discussion about grey area within that over the course of the weekend. I believe personally, and this is just my personal belief, and this is not related to Geelong and Essendon. I think anyone who kind of knows me in this channel knows that I am able to be impartial when I need to be. I'm okay with the adjudication being like this. I do want to see it consistently delivered. And the problem is that the very next day, the Port Adelaide and St Kilda game, we basically saw an equivalent scenario play out. And this time the decision wasn't made to issue a free kick. And that really bothers me because there is that inconsistency. And so I can understand Essendon supporters being annoyed because of that inconsistency. I think what transpired the next day would drive them berserk. But not because they were right the night before. It's because the umpires were wrong on the Sunday. So I personally, no problems with it. Let's move on to the next one, which will be the Zack Tuohy backing into the contest moment against Sam Draper. Now, in this scenario, Zack Tuohy, I don't think anyone would question. I feel like even Essendon supporters wouldn't question the fact that Zack was eyes for the ball and he wasn't endeavouring to make contact with Sam Draper. I think that was pretty clear. He had eyes for the ball the majority of the time, especially in the kind of critical moments right before the contest between the two. The argument is that he then made contact with Sam Draper and chopped the arm. And this is where I'll push back. So again, going back to my last one there, I think it was the right call, but I want to see consistency across the competition so everyone is aware of it. In this particular scenario, I believe that the right decision not to issue a free kick was made because I want to see the game treated a little bit more like basketball in this sense. Now, what we see in the NBA is a bit of flopping from time to time. That wasn't the case here. But, and actually, I guess I should stress that I can't think of any of these scenarios where Essendon players carried themselves in a way other than the utmost professional behaviour. I really appreciate that from the Bombers players. They probably had rights, especially if they felt like they were on the wrong end of the stick. They had every right to start throwing their hands out and screaming and shouting at umpires and being undisciplined and then giving away 50-metre penalties, which they didn't. And so credit to the Bombers players there. But anyway, in this scenario, what I want to see is something similar to the NBA, where in the NBA, if you're attempting to block the ball, now this is a far more normal scenario because you're looking to reject it, you're looking to block it. As the person shoots, you're facing them, you're looking to jump up and swat the ball back down, reject it. in that particular scenario, you're looking at the player. There's no visibility issue here, and also the priorities and what's the rule is built around is the did you make contact with the ball first component. Now, I've watched the footage back a couple of times. Again, I can't show it. And please, someone, like if there's another angle that maybe I've not checked out and maybe proves me wrong here, I would happily be wrong. But my understanding in this scenario is that Zack Tuohy first made contact with the ball, then made contact with the arm. I would also argue it wasn't really an arm chop. Like at the end of the day, he barely kind of nudged the arm and then Draper's arm just fell off, or could it prompt him to kind of spill the ball at that particular point? There was no arm chopping here. Not like what we would see of a typical arm chop with the defender reaching across for the spoil and then kind of knocking the arm out in the process. These were two arms that were kind of, treading towards each other, and they kind of collided. They collided in a different sort of way to what you would see in a normal, very deliberate spoil where the arm is coming across the other arm and breaking it essentially. So wrong call from the Essendon fans there, and a lot of crying about it. The final two that I want to talk about are holding the ball decisions. And it's in these scenarios that I will kind of give a little bit to the Bombers players. And the Bombers supporters, I should say. When it comes to the tackles on both Jack Bowes and Tom Stewart, both of them should have been penalised, especially Tom Stewart's one. He tried to break through a contest and didn't dispose of the ball legally. We then, flashed to the other end of the ground at one point where Tyson Stengel lays a tackle on Jordan Ridley, pins the hand. It was a beautiful tackle, absolutely sensational tackle, and should have been rewarded with the free kick, which it was. But the problem was that at the other end of the ground, Tom Stewart got away with it. I can't remember if it was before or after at this point. Someone please clarify in the comments here. Not sure if it was before or after, but ultimately, Tom Stewart got away with one. Similar idea for Jack Bowes. A little less on the nose in that particular case, but illegally disposed. It should be kind of holding the ball. Simple as that. So as far as this is concerned, the two most discussed ones, I actually agree with the umpires on in their decision. The two that have been the least discussed, but are also the ones that we see occur the most often, are the ones that I absolutely wholeheartedly agree with the Essendon supporters on. Where my issue comes in, and where Nuffs of the week kind of comes into it in this case, is the carry-on. There has been so much bullshit on social media in the last couple of days from Essendon supporters claiming that those couple of free kicks, and I'll bundle all four in there, but I don't know how many actually directly related to goals to Geelong in the end, or they were just decisions that maybe deprived Essendon, or whatever the case was. I can't. Well, no, one I guess directly led to a Geelong goal, I suppose, in terms of the Jai Menzie carrying it over, the deliberate rush behind call. But the other three may or may not have resulted in goals to Geelong or Essendon, and would not have swayed the contest one way or the other. And that's the thing. Geelong won by 45 points. Those couple of free kicks didn't make a difference. Numerically speaking, they didn't make a difference. And momentum-wise, you could see what Geelong already had at that point. It didn't make a difference. Essendon was on the floor at that particular point, and Geelong was just putting its foot on their neck and ready to squeeze. Maybe they did. Maybe they didn't get a little bit of extra help. Not intentional, but maybe they didn't get the rubber. Maybe they got the rubber, the green in this case. But the game was done. Like, you were already in trouble. So let's not get too carried away here. And I want to stress this because there's all this social media ranting and raving and sooking and whinging. And it's real life as well. I was absolutely stunned. And I guess this is a massive credit to us at the Hoops Crew that, I can wander down to the shops and get recognized now. But I got pulled aside today and someone had a crack at me about the fact that Geelong didn't deserve to win. I go, mate, we won by 45 points. The umpires did not gift us that game. So there's some real tone deafness there. And I've actually seen a bit of commentary from non-Geelong supporters, non-Essendon supporters, neutrals in this scenario, kind of highlighting this is pretty common practice from Essendon supporters. Now, I haven't noticed that in recent years because Essendon's kind of sucked through the entire time. And so when they've lost, they've just lost because they're not good enough. Now they're a somewhat competitive team, though again, I would say their current ladder position really overrates them. And I think most people are probably inclined to agree unless you support Essendon at the moment. But yeah, it's just the ranting and raving is ridiculous. And then for one last little point of evidence, and it shouldn't really matter, but I'm going to just highlight it anyway as an additional point in terms of how Essendon and Geelong have been treated by umpires this season. Now, I don't have the up-to-date figures. This is after round 15, but I will stress that Essendon won the free kick count on Saturday night. Essendon has received the second highest number of free kicks for as opposed to against this season. They're plus 37 free kicks in their favour. Geelong, on the other hand, minus 40. Second worst in the competition. So to everyone, whether you're an Essendon supporter or not, who claims that Geelong are the love child of the AFL, that they get a free ride, all these sorts of stupid comments. There's your data. A week old, but there's your data. We do not get an armchair ride. Now, I would also argue that, a free kick differential ladder can kind of be a little bit misleading in some sense because it can be poor tackling and those sort of things that absolutely deserve to get pinged. I don't think the figures here represent teams who are ill-disciplined or any of those sorts. I don't think, or receiving a bit of extra love from umpires. I don't think there's the home ground factor that we hear when it comes to interstate teams or any of that sort of stuff. Though I can't help but notice that there's quite a few interstate teams that are higher up on that ladder and the Victorian ones near the bottom. But I don't think that's a factor either. I just think it's technique and the way that teams want to play the game. Geelong have got big bodies. They tackle hard. They're looking to kind of assert some dominance. And as a result, you give free kicks away. There's other teams with players who position themselves in a great... I mean, think about the Joel Selwood days and Joel Selwood getting head-high free kicks. He put himself in the firing line and received them. Get your Duckwood rubbish out. He put his head over the ball and, sometimes got himself a free kick for it. And there's players in the competition who are just like that now. Not that they're trying to intentionally extract free kicks, but that they do because of the way they play. And so that creates fluctuations on either side of the spectrum. We're going to wrap this up now. Essendon supporters, you're nuffies. You've got no idea. You haven't looked at the stats. You haven't looked at the data, and you're not bringing a rational thought to the conversation. So get out of here. Stop wasting our breath. Geelong fans, we got the chocolates. I hope you enjoyed it. Neutral fans, let's have a conversation about what we're seeing with the backing into contests like Zack Tuohy did, and then, of course, Jai Menzies' rush behind, because I think there is some more nuance to this conversation. I'd like to hash it out with people. Let me know in the comments what you think about the way those two calls were adjudicated, the way they were on the night, according to the letter of the law, but also maybe the way they should or shouldn't be. Let us know in the comments. Check out the Hoops Crew content on YouTube. Check us out on Patreon. Find me at Paul James Games on socials. Thanks a lot for watching. Remain Geelong strong. Essendon, you're a bunch of nuffs. I'll see you later.